Welcome to Trauma Bay. You've been told to fight, to push, to chase success, to become someone, to fix your flaws, to strive harder. Every inch of your life has been about effort, force. Force your emotions to be acceptable, force your face to smile when it doesn't want to, force your dreams to align with expectations, force your worth into the world, hoping someone sees it. But here's the dark truth. The more you force life, the more it resists you. Alan Watts said, "Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth." And yet, that's what you've been taught to do, to manufacture identity, to build a version of yourself that fits into a world that feels like it was never made for you. You keep sculpting this self-image with fear as your chisel, hoping you'll finally become whole. But the more you carve, the more fragmented you feel. There's a sickness that grows when you live in resistance, a psychological dissonance. The body may move, the smile may stay, but beneath it all is a silent scream. Because you feel, that something is off. Life isn't flowing, it's jamming, clogging, suffocating, and it's all because you're trying to control what was never meant to be controlled. You try to control your thoughts, your emotions, your relationships, your path, your timing, but control is just fear dressed in logic. And fear is the root of force. You force because you're terrified. Terrified that if you don't, everything will collapse, that your worth will dissolve, that the people you love will leave, that your life will lose meaning. So you tighten your grip, you try harder, you plan more, you perform, you hustle, you fake it, you climb, you pretend, and in the process, you lose the very thing you were trying to protect, yourself. Watts believed life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived. But we were raised to treat life like a war, so we put on armor. Psychological armor, perfectionism, hyperproductivity, emotional detachment, humor as deflection. Always ready, always polished, never vulnerable, never still. But life, real life, is chaotic, messy, uncontrolled, unpredictable, and every attempt to control it is an act of aggression against your own nature. There's a reason why your anxiety doesn't leave, why your depression lingers under the surface of success, why you feel like a stranger even among friends. It's because you're performing a life, not living it. The truth is unsettling. The moment you stop forcing life, everything begins to change. Not because you made it change, but because you finally stopped getting in the way. There's a dark side to surrender. It feels like death at first. The death of ambition, the death of control, the death of that image you've spent years building. You'll feel like you're falling, like you're losing everything. And maybe you are, but what you're losing was never you. It was just scaffolding, a cage painted gold. Let go. Not because it's spiritual or poetic, but because clinging is killing you. Your nervous system wasn't built for this kind of chronic tension. Your soul wasn't meant to be constantly evaluated. Let go because forcing life creates an inner war you can never win. There's a terrifying freedom in letting go, a disorienting silence, because without all the forcing, all the proving, who are you? That's the question that haunts people. That's why they stay busy. That's why they stay addicted to control. Because the void left behind when you stop forcing is unbearable, at first. But if you can sit with that void, if you can survive that silence, something strange happens. Life starts moving, not on your terms but in its own way. And it's almost insulting how effortlessly it begins to work. The moment you stop trying so hard. You start meeting people you didn't chase. Opportunities show up where you didn't look. Your body begins to relax. Your mind becomes quieter. You sleep deeper. You speak more honestly. You laugh, not to entertain, but because you actually find something funny. It's not magic. It's alignment. When you stop trying to fix, force, or fabricate your life, You return to something primal, something ancient, the river beneath the noise, the rhythm that was always there, waiting. Alan Watts said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves." And maybe that's the sickness of our time. We treat life like a destination, a checklist, a scoreboard. But life is not a product. It's not a brand. It's not a performance. It's an unfolding, an undressing, a remembering. You are not here to conquer life. You're here to feel it, in all its chaos, in all its stillness. The most dangerous illusion we carry is that forcing life will protect us, that if we just do enough, be enough, please enough, we'll finally earn peace. But peace is not a trophy. It's not the reward for a life perfectly managed. Peace is what remains when the war ends, when you put the weapons down, when you stop performing, when you stop chasing. This is not about giving up. It's about waking up. You don't need more willpower. You need less war. You don't need more motivation. You need more surrender. Because everything you've been trying to force, love, belonging, purpose, clarity, these things aren't found through force. They arrive through presence, through alignment, through letting life happen through you, not to you or by you. What if nothing is wrong with you? What if you've just been taught to distrust the very nature of your being? What if your emotions aren't problems, but signals? What if your confusion isn't a sign of failure, but an invitation to drop the script? Watts believed that the harder we try to control life, the more artificial it becomes. We cut off the edges. We sanitize the mystery, and we wonder why we feel numb. The goal is not to master life. The goal is to let life master you. Not in the sense of defeat, but in surrender, in curiosity, in humility. To sit still in the storm and whisper, "I don't need to control this to survive." Because you never had control, you just had the illusion of it, and that illusion is exhausting you. So here's the uncomfortable question. Who would you be if you stopped trying so hard? Let it sink in. Would you still be lovable? Would you still be safe? Would anyone still stay? Or would the whole house of cards collapse? Maybe it needs to. Maybe that collapse is the beginning. When you stop forcing life, what collapses is false, and what remains is real. Let yourself unravel. Let the noise fade. Let life surprise you. Because the version of you that's trying so hard to survive might be the one thing keeping you from actually living. There's a reason you feel tired even after resting. It's because your rest is not real. Your stillness is anxious. Your silence is waiting for the next command. You lay down, but your mind is still sprinting. That's not rest. That's the illusion of rest. You've been wired to think that stopping is failure, that slowing down is laziness, that letting go is weakness. But have you ever asked, where did that belief come from? Who benefits when you never feel safe enough to stop? A system that profits from your self-doubt will never teach you peace. It will sell you productivity. It will reward your burnout. It will applaud your emotional repression. And when your soul starts to crack under the weight, it will hand you a prescription, a distraction, a new goal, a new identity, anything but the truth. Because the truth is dangerous. The truth is, life doesn't need your control. You are not the architect of every outcome. You are not the moral judge of every emotion. You are not the CEO of the universe. You are a wave in an ocean pretending to be the ocean itself. When you realize this, there is grief. Grief for the years spent performing. For the friendships built on roles, not realness. For the goals you chased that were never truly yours. There's rage, too. Rage at a world that demanded masks. Rage at yourself for believing you were only valuable when you were useful. But beneath that grief is the beginning. Watts described life like music, not a journey to a final note, but a dance, a play. You don't listen to a song to arrive at the last beat. You listen because it moves something in you. But you've been living like life is a task list, as if the only reason to be alive is to complete something, fix something, impress someone. That mindset is why your joy feels so conditional, why you can't sit in a room alone without needing noise, why silence feels suffocating instead of sacred. You're not broken. You're overmanaged, overscheduled, overstimulated, and underlived. When you stop forcing life, the first thing that rises is discomfort, a psychological detox. Because all the things you've buried under busyness begin to surface: shame, sadness, anger, confusion. And they don't come up to destroy you. They come up to be seen, to be felt, to be released. But most people can't sit through that. They panic. They run back to the chase. They say, "I just need a new goal, a new routine, a new purpose." No, you need to stop running. You are not a problem to be solved. You are not a project. You are not a brand. You are a living, breathing contradiction. And that's okay. Life is not waiting for you to perfect yourself. It's waiting for you to be yourself, fully, without permission, without polish, without apology. But that only happens when you stop trying to engineer outcomes. You've built an inner world where control equals safety. But safety built on control is brittle. It shatters the moment life doesn't follow your script. And it never does. So what if the safety you seek isn't in controlling life, but in trusting yourself to meet it as it is? That's what Watts was pointing at. He wasn't preaching nihilism. He wasn't saying, "Give up." He was saying, "Wake up. The universe is not your enemy. It is not your servant. It is you. You are it. You're not a stranger here. You belong without effort. But you've forgotten. And in forgetting, you became desperate. You forced life to give you answers, to validate you, to approve of you. But life doesn't speak in approval. It speaks in silence, in sensation, in intuition, in serendipity. You have to listen, not manipulate. When you stop forcing life, you realize how many of your relationships were based on roles, not reality. Who are you when you're not pleasing? Who are you when you're not fixing? Who are you when you're not being useful? Sometimes, when you stop forcing, people leave. Because they weren't in love with you. They were in love with what you provided. The mask, the performance. And losing them hurts. But keeping them hurts more. Let them go. Let what's false fall away. Because what remains is real. And real is what you've been starved of. Not stimulation. Not admiration, not validation, but connection, stillness, presence. Stop forcing, start feeling. The body knows, the soul knows, the mind is just loud. Watts often laughed in his lectures, not because life is a joke, but because the seriousness with which we hold our delusions is hilarious. We try to possess what cannot be possessed. Time, love, people, meaning, and in the effort to possess, we lose the ability to experience. So stop, not forever, not as a rebellion, but as a remembering. Breathe like you mean it. Cry like no one's grading you. Rest like the world won't end if you do. And watch. Watch how life rearranges itself, not because you controlled it, but because you trusted it. The irony is, the less you force, the more aligned things become. Life doesn't need your perfection. It needs your participation. Let go. Everything changes when you do. There's a moment, after all the unraveling, all the grief, all the detachment, where you wake up and realize you're still here. Not the version of you that performed. Not the one who was always proving, always pleasing, always posturing. But the raw one, the silent one, the one that doesn't need a script to be enough. And in that moment, something shifts. You start to see the world differently, not as a battlefield to conquer, but as a mirror. Everything you used to chase begins to reflect back what you are already carrying. Peace doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like absence. Absence of tension. Absence of trying. Absence of pretending. And in that absence, something sacred finally has space to arrive. Presence. Presence doesn't scream for attention. It whispers. And only when the noise dies down can you finally hear it. That's what changes when you stop forcing life. You begin to hear yourself. And maybe for the first time, you're not disgusted. You're not judging. You're not fixing. You're just listening. It's in that space where healing begins. Not with effort, not with steps, not with plans, but with truth. The truth that you were never meant to be a machine. The truth that you don't need to be constantly improving to be worthy of love. The truth that the people who matter won't leave when you're real. They'll show up even closer. The truth that surrender is not giving up. It's coming home. When you stop forcing life, you stop measuring it in milestones. You stop asking, am I ahead or behind? Because you finally realize, there's no race. There never was. There's just now, and now, and now. You see that most of what you feared never really existed. Rejection, failure, embarrassment. They were shadows on the wall, but you let them drive your entire existence. You built a life to avoid feeling things you were strong enough to survive. Watts would say that chasing security is like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. But if you cup your hands gently, you can hold it. You don't need force. You need trust. And this is what they don't teach you. That the most radical act of healing is not effort. It's ease. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is sit still and allow the truth to break you. Because only when it breaks you does it finally rebuild you. You stop needing to be impressive. You stop waiting to be fixed. You stop asking life to look a certain way in order for you to be okay. You become the kind of quiet that doesn't mean emptiness, but peace. The kind of stillness that doesn't mean failure, but alignment. The kind of surrender that doesn't mean collapse, but rebirth. You become someone who no longer fears the unknown, because you've met it. You've sat inside the void and found that it didn't devour you. It revealed you. You stopped forcing and life didn't fall apart. It finally began. And maybe, just maybe, that's the only thing life ever wanted from you. Not your control, not your perfection, but your truth, your presence, your willingness to feel it all without turning it into a performance, to let it be messy, to let it be real, to let it be. So if you're listening to this, still clenching, still chasing, still trying so hard to get it right, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped trying to win? And instead just witnessed, just allowed, just trusted. Maybe the most powerful version of you isn't the one who forces life to obey. Maybe it's the one who trusts life enough to dance with it. Because when you stop forcing, everything changes. Not because life became perfect, but because you finally became free.